The long list. When Melissa was 14 years old, her father sold her to a crank cook named Possum for 2 pounds of crystal meth and a broken down Trans Am. Possum kept her chained up to a rusty wood stove during the day with just a mason jar of water and a box of Cheerios, while he worked in the lab in the back behind the trailer, breaking down Sudafed and ephedrine tablets into glass shards of amphetamine. In the evening, Possum would swing the door open, and the cat-like piss stench with burning chemicals would enter the trailer. He'd unchain her so she could make his meals, wash the dishes, and mop up. At night, as the bullfrogs would begin to croak and the crickets chirp, she would press her fist into her mouth, trying to stifle cries of pain as he lay upon her, his rank smell of sweat and chemicals just overwhelming her. 2 months later, a couple of Boy Scouts found her naked corpse in a drainage ditch in a patch of woods outside Eureka, California. A pale tangle of limbs sticking out of the trash and sewage of the dirty culvert. Though the case officially went to Homicide Detective McClenny, Detective Stanler had been the one at the crime scene assisting. Stanler had helped her take her body by the arms and pull her remains from the rank sewer and debris. Her body rose up from the muck. Her head had lollied from side to side, eyes wide staring, looked at him. For a moment, Stanler thought he saw a few flickers of life register in them, though her gray, bloated face clearly revealed that she was long, long dead. Stanler settled deeper into the seat of his car, and he flipped open a battered copy of Hamlet, scrolling down the long list of names he had scrawled on the last page. What a fucking week. Suspended and out on bail, looking at manslaughter charges. He was parked in front of the police chief's suburban home, waiting for that fat fuck to arrive home from work. He eyed the long list and sipped a pint of wild turkey, washed it down with a warm Budweiser, and he thought to himself, someone who could do something like that to a 14-year-old girl, how can you let someone like that live? Who could possibly miss them? Who could even possibly care? No one did. Nobody missed that piece of shit Possum. 2 weeks paid administrative leave was all Stanler received, after he emptied his service revolver into that sick degenerate's face. It had been a big bust. The lab, kilos of meth, and arsenal of weapons, everyone at the department was happy, and all he had gotten was 2 weeks paid leave and a wild party at the Alibi, thrown by the other detectives and a gaggle of uniformed officers. When the inquest asked him why he had gone out there, outside of his jurisdiction, to that backwood no-man's land, he simply replied that he was following up on a lead from an informant. What was he gonna say? That a ghost had told him where to look? That the dead little girl had come back from the grave and told him? That in the dark pre-dawn hours, that twilight time between sick drunk and excruciatingly hungover, he had awoken, lacquered in a sweat, his wife snoring loudly beside him, the room spinning, his heart threatening to break free from his chest. And there she would be, a frail little girl at the foot of his bed, her stick-figure limbs draped in a white nightie, its hemline stained in dark crimson streaks. The first time he had seen her, he screamed, horrified, the raspy noise of his own startled voice burning in his dry mouth and throat. His wife awoke and shot straight up in bed. "What is it? What's wrong?" Stanler blinked at his alcohol-swollen eyes. Only darkness. The girl was gone. There's nothing there. It's nothing, honey. Just had a nightmare. Go back to sleep. Okay, his wife said and rolled back over and immediately started snoring again. He lay there till the room grew pale with morning light. His flesh was tingling, wondering what he had seen, wondering if he was going insane. The next time the little girl appeared, he was calmer. He blinked twice quickly, expecting the ghostly form to disappear like last time, but she didn't. She remained right there looking down at him with her cold eyes, sunken deep into their dark sockets. He stared at her in disbelief. Was this real? Could this pale figure possibly be real? That's when she stepped forward to him, quickly, her blue lips parting as she began to speak. She began to tell him things in a whisper. He could smell the grave on her breath as she murmured things in his ear about the night her father sold her to Possum. It was a dark night, deep in the backwoods of southern Humboldt. Past the mountains of Alder Point and Blocksburg, the place that didn't even have a name, near Zena, on the Trinity border, where it snowed in the winter and the cold mornings found the hills hardened with ice. The sky was black and it was pouring rain. Her father had been drunk and handled her roughly, pulling her by the arm through the muddy front yard. She was terrified and devastated that her daddy's big Danner boots were splashing mud all over her dress. Her mother had been dead for less than 3 weeks. Her father shoved her roughly through the front door of Possum's trailer. "She's all fucking yours," her father spat at the old bearded man in greasy overalls. Possum shuffled toward her and took her cheeks in his grizzled, calloused hand, squeezing her face tightly, moving her head back and forth for inspection. She's a pretty one." "If you say so," her father said. "She's got that weird eye and those fucked up teeth. But she can cook real good and clean. She's damn handy with the broom." "Aw, yeah," the old man chuckled, handing over a sealed bundle of methamphetamine. She'll do nicely." 2 months later, she was dead and abandoned like so much trash. These sick fucks, how could he let them live? No one had missed Possum. Nobody mourned him. They had thrown him a party. He was a hero. That time. The second time was different. That one had got him suspended, and most likely fired. No pension, no 401k. He might even do some time for that one. Stanler sipped his whiskey and reached down between his legs and lifted up the Beretta, an old pistol his father gave him long ago. He cradled the heavy, cold weight of the gun, waiting for his old boss, that fat fucking piece of shit, to arrive into his nice suburban home. Maybe his wife would find him dead on their well-manicured front lawn. Maybe one of his teenage kids. Oh well. To have a sick fuck like that for a father? Just desserts. It was a warm night. He had the window down, the whine of passing trucks on 101 softly humming in his ears. He thought of Hamlet. He had taken a Shakespearean class back in college when he was studying criminal law, still entertaining the idea of going to law school and becoming an attorney. Before Charlotte got pregnant, he had to quit school and he joined the force so he could start making money for his new family, only for her to give birth to a stillborn boy 7 months later, never to conceive again. Hamlet. The tale of the haunted Danish prince had always stuck with him. Standing atop the castle parapet, the ghost of his father crying out for him to avenge his murderer. Ghost, my hour is almost come, when I too sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself. Stanler had always wondered, was Hamlet insane? But no, that would mean they were all insane. Marcellus, Bernardo, all of them. They had all seen it. They couldn't all be insane. It had to be true. The ghost had to be real. The second time the little girl told Stanler to kill, things hadn't worked out like they had with Possum. "My father," she whispered to him. "Kill him." How couldn't he? How could anyone do something so sick as to sell their own daughter? They surely deserved to die. She described his car, where he would be, the pound of meth Stanler would find in the trunk, the Glock he always kept under his seat. Stanler had waited at the Red Lion Motel on Broadway, right where the little girl told him to, and just like clockwork, the car rolled right into the parking lot. Stanler had been amused by the sight of the look on the man's face when he strolled up and pointed his .38 leveled right to the guy's eyes, squeezing off around before that fucking jerk could even utter a word. But there was no meth in the trunk, no gun under the seat, and it ended up that it wasn't even her father at all. At least, that's what the investigators said. They claimed it was some businessman from Santa Rosa. But when Melissa appeared to him the next night, shimmering and ghastly in the moonlight, she told him that no, it was her father. They were lying, all of them, lying liars. The little girl whispered to him in the pale blue lips and graveyard breath. They had been trying to hide it. It was a conspiracy, and they had all fired him because the police chief was in on it too. That's why the police chief had to go next. He had to go. And that's why Stanler's in his car outside his house, the pistol cradled in his hand. He had to kill his old boss, off that meth-dealing, slave-keeping, degenerate son of a bitch. There were more. So many more. Many, many more. The frail ghost had murmured there were many of them. His wife was one of them, too. She had made the list. The cheating meth whore, fucking the entire department for crank. The little girl told him all about it late at night, moments before morning, when the earth smelled sweet and silent. It was cold, and his heartbeat made it so it would threaten to leave his chest. Yes, there were many of them, a whole list, and it was a long, long list. Well, that certainly was a twist, wasn't it? Wow. I want to thank all the lovely patrons currently listed on screen right now. Dan R, Neophyte Games, Chaos X, Mr. Swiston, Official Jerboa, JY Pyromancer, Hayden MH, Ethan A, Daniel H, Maximilian Charles P, Deneen H, GoGo Q Puppy LLC, and Young Sykes. Guys, thank you so much. And I really, really do mean it when I say you guys are single-handedly keeping this channel alive. And if you would like to become a patron, get access to a myriad of Patreon-only stories and a whole bunch of other stuff, check out the Patreon down below. Thank you.